Hello, everyone, and welcome to AI Cybersecurity Syndicated Podcast, hence known as Black Hat News. Here today, we have our guest, Steve Kass, who is the COO of Highspring. I'm Dave Jemmett, the CEO of CISO Global. Steve Kass, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Happy to be here.
Well, first off, why don't you tell us a little bit about Highspring?
Sure. Highspring is a global professional services company with 3 integrated service offerings: consulting, managed services, and talent solutions. So we provide a variety of human capital solutions for companies, whether it be a deliverable-based consulting situation. Managed services is effectively outsourcing or BPO, and we do also a lot of offshore work with that as well. And talent solutions being professional services talent solutions, so primarily via the office of the CFO or office of CIO. If you need particular kinds of professionals, we can provide them for you and have them work with you.
Here's a surprise. We're actually a client of yours.
What a surprise. Well, everyone is, Dave, so I'm really glad to hear that, and hopefully we're doing a good job for you.
You do a service model. In fact, when you presented, your folks presented to us, they were in a competition. But the human element and actually the brain trust that they had was what we needed in our SEC filings,
Yep.
right? So we used you. AI, how is that affecting your company today? And what do you see in the future with it?
Well, it's affecting, as it is most companies, it's affecting a lot of things that we do. And I'll talk specifically about the talent solutions business because that's primarily what you have been interacting with, which, by the way, we brand as Vaco by Highspring, our talent solutions business. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But the reality is, here's the overriding theme in terms of what we're doing as an organization, which is there are 2 things that only the human can do, if you will, if you don't mind me using the term the human. One being building relationships, regardless of how good AI gets, and regardless of how many conversations that you have with ChatGPT while driving down the road. The bottom line is that relationships are about human contact, as are in almost all cases closing deals. So what our overall philosophy is how can we create efficiencies by using AI to do some of the things that, frankly, the machine may be able to do more efficiently or quicker and more cost effectively than people. And then how can we have people spend more time with human interactions and building relationships and developing business and a variety of other things that are really important.
Well, obviously as a cybersecurity company, we use AI to fight AI.
Yep.
Right? Foreign state actors, Korea, Russia. That actually is a different aspect in interacting with our sales folks who help companies with their cybersecurity posture. How do you feel about the cybersecurity posture today? And with so much data and information that you have, employees, clients, how are you protecting that data? And how do you feel about that?
Well, clearly the risk is greater because I don't even know that we have scratched the surface yet, or that we know where we are in terms of what these models can potentially do until they've already done them. So, we work with a variety of external vendors as well as internal. We obviously have a lot of PII information, being in the talent solutions business and being that we are the employer of record of many people. So we do a variety of things to kind of keep us in a really good situation related to cybersecurity, and fortunately have not had any major incidents to this point.
That's great. I always ask what DoD, CIA, Marriott, Starwood, Target all have in common. They've all been breached.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not a matter of if, it's when now.
Yeah.
So with the aspect of recruiting, do you use any kind of aspect of AI to actually help narrow down the candidates that you're looking at?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the areas where specifically in the talent solutions business that maybe it's been ahead of some other areas of AI. So through a variety of models, you have the ability to match people to job requirements, very, very effectively. Back in the old days when maybe you would run a Boolean search or keyword or whatever the case may be, but through a variety of vectorized models right now, you can match a candidate to another candidate digitally, and you can also match a candidate to a job requirement. So that is definitely an area that has been significantly improved. And I think you find that a lot of times if you compare the human aspect of that in the early stages, kind of finding you, the human is better at sort of culture matching ultimately. If maybe you have a person who has worked with you and knows the company and that sort of thing, but in terms of getting the group of candidates to consider for a particular opportunity, AI is very helpful in that area.
Okay, that's a great answer. So matching those to each job probably saves a lot of time.
Yep.
What do you feel in your company? What percentage are you using AI versus going through HR or going through the papers to find the right candidate? What do you say in the time savings?
Time savings are significant, and I would say that if you look at the way that people spent their time 5 years ago to the way that they spend their time now, I think you'd find that probably 50% is spent differently than it was spent before. And the ironic part of that is that, again, a lot more of that time can be spent in front of people while the AI does the work. Another example that I can give you in our talent solutions business specifically is we have recently developed a product through our own digital business that formats candidate profiles and resumes. So as a client, if you are looking at a variety of candidates for a job, if we present, let's say, 3 people for a particular job requirement that you have, we're likely going to send you some kind of profile or resume or whatever the case may be. Well, frankly, you want the eye to be able to look at the same format of resume for each person. You don't want to have them looking different. So traditionally, to take you behind the curtain in our business, you would have a person that would sit there all day and just simply format resumes so they look the same. We now have a tool that you simply drag resumes into it, or you can upload a file of a whole variety of candidates, and it gives you a sort of uniform output of how those resumes look. And also, if you want to highlight a particular thing for a particular aspect of their background for a specific job, you can prompt the model to emphasize cybersecurity or emphasize maybe an industry background that the person has that you want to make sure that is more focused on. And again, it's completely consistent, and frankly, it does. And you can still go back and edit it, but generally speaking, it does the job so much faster than a human could do it. And then again, humans can spend more time on higher value tasks.
Interesting. So I'm going to kind of jump topic here. When your folks go into work on clients, a lot of them work from their office, right? Like our folks with Highspring work from their offices and help us with our SEC filings, which I can't stress enough. They're really good brain trust. The issue is if they go on site, which some of your folks do, and a company is using AI or there's a cybersecurity incident, what is your mandate for that individual within the company? How would you handle that situation?
If something came up, and particularly if it were in the client environment, because most of the time, the kind of work that you're referring to, we would be doing in the client's environment, in the client's network. I mean, frankly, our approach is to make the client aware, and to make the client aware of all the circumstances that we have seen, and take direction from the client or if they are inexperienced in that area, we can provide a variety of referrals or solutions to solve the problem. But I think the most important thing is just to make the client aware. And the other issue is that we generally do not extract data from other systems unless that's specifically part of the engagement. So we are working in the client's environment.
Okay, I appreciate that. Obviously, they work in our systems, so they don't take anything off-site. So with that, I was talking to Valo the other day. You've seen more M&A transactions take place this year than a long time.
Yep, it's
right?
true.
So in an M&A transaction, what are the things that a client has to do when they're buying a company?
Well, they do obviously a variety of aspects of due diligence in terms of aligning with the client, but post-transaction, there's obviously a ton of data migration, and there's just a lot of systems alignment. So you probably you want to look at what systems is that company is the acquired company in, and to what extent can you learn from that? Does everyone need to be in the same system? What's the timing of that? You also want to make sure that the companies can take advantage of each other's data as they become one company. So again, what's the data migration strategy related to that? So there's a variety of aspects to consider, including data quality, data governance, and a variety of other data-related issues that you would inspect the company for, in advance, and then more thoroughly after the acquisition is made.
Okay, let's step back before the acquisition's made. So I acquired a few companies in my companies prior. So I always have to get a legal opinion, right? And if they're public, we have to do the public filings, make sure they're on time. If they're private, we do audits, make sure it forms up to the penny, typically doesn't. But then most importantly, do you believe they should have a cybersecurity performed for their posture as well as what they're doing to protect it? Because
absolutely, that is a critical aspect of what you're doing. I mean, it's very, the best analogy would be, if you're buying a house, you want to do an inspection because you do not want to find out that there is significant risk that you were not even aware of before you bought it. So yes, we would encourage them to bring in a third party, do an inspection of all aspects of data and also cybersecurity, and understand that really well. So yes, that is definitely a critical part of any acquisition before the transaction takes place.
Yeah, because of the tail coverage, not everybody puts tail coverage on a transaction. And for our audience, tail coverage covers anything prior to the acquisition. We're trying to labor to try to get that as one of the things. For example, you have to have your legal opinion, as I said. You have to, if they're in compliance, you have to make sure they've got PCI DSS3 or HIPAA. Right. And we're finding that a lot of those are not taking place. But the biggest one that people probably remember is Marriott bought Starwood, right? No cybersecurity. All of a sudden, they hooked the networks together to form the data, and they got hacked.
Yep.
Because they had been in Starwood for 6 years, and they found a new playground. So do you believe in the near future, not only in having those things mandated for an acquisition, it should be mandated for a cybersecurity inspection?
There's no question. Again, as things become more complex and as a variety of AI models are able to learn things that are both good and destructive, I think we don't know what may happen in the future. So certainly, so we understand what the risk is. Yes, I mean, I would absolutely mandate. I would absolutely suggest mandating that, so what you're getting into, what the risk is, et cetera.
Excellent. Hopefully, that becomes mandated by law.
Yeah.
So even public companies. I'll just give you a perfect example where I would like your opinion. Attorney called and said, this CEO of a large Fortune 500 wants to buy this company. It's inexpensive. I can't get compliance. And have they done a cyber? No, they have not. Talked to the CEO, didn't know who he was. I do now. And essentially, we found 1.5 million records on the net that had been stolen, that no one knew about it. So in that situation, how would you, what would you do in encouraging, and do you encourage companies to have tail coverage, know that you want to have the cyber posture, but how much do you think that's actually going to keep going forward and affecting M&A?
I mean, it's going to impact it, and obviously you want to have coverage, but also it depends on the deal. I mean, sometimes in getting certain deals done, it becomes a term of the deal where you can get certain things done, you can't get other things done. But I don't think there's any question that you would want that to be your starting position, that you would want to attempt to make sure that you had coverage on anything that happened previously that then becomes your problem in the future. So, I would definitely agree that is an important aspect.
Thank you. So on the M&A, how much have you seen happen this year, and what different industries?
So yes, we have definitely seen a significant uptick in just deal activity and M&A activity this year, particularly as compared with the last couple of years. We do a lot of work in financial services, and have done a couple of and have worked on done transaction work with a couple of larger banks that have come together. We also have done some work in the insurance brokerage industry as well. We've seen some aerospace defense work that we've done as well. We've seen some retail and consumer. But if I were to say what area have we had the most activity in, probably financial services and either banking or insurance brokerage.
And what is the biggest impact that you bring to a client?
The biggest impact that we feel that we bring to a client is a couple of different things. One, we have expertise that we feel that others don't have. So if you work with us and we're doing a banking transaction, you're going to work with people, particularly at the higher level, that have done transactions specifically in that industry, that may have experience with that bank in the past, that understand the most recent regulation items that may have come up, that understand and have studied other transactions and understand where things have gone well and have not gone well. I also think in working with us, you get something else, which is the ability to, potentially scale up or scale down resources where necessary because of our talent solutions business, VACO by Highspring. If it turns out that there are more people necessary in order to complete a particular task than in the past, we can go out and get those experts. We have a database of several million people who we have specific experience with in the past that are actually employees of ours that we can bring in quickly in a situation, and frankly sometimes work with other firms that may be doing work that use us to help them scale up, and we can do that as the first party in that case. So we believe that we do a number of things in our integrated service offerings where we can offer things that other firms just simply can't offer. In addition to the things that I mentioned, we also have thousands of offshore resources where there's obviously cost arbitrage, but in addition to that, if you want to do work on different time zones, if you want different languages, or frankly, if you just want specific skills that maybe not as available in the U.S., we have the ability to find them throughout the world and have had a lot of experience with it and are also doing it a lot ourselves. A number of the things that we do, we have had experience with as well, something that we call drinking our own champagne. If we're gonna talk to a client about a particular service, then we want to make sure that we have actually done that ourselves and that we are customer zero and can talk from a position of success in the past. So,
okay, That's great. I usually say drinking Kool-Aid, but I'm going to change it to vodka now.
All right.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
So champagne, that was good.
We're very high end people. So
I guess so.
I'm sure you can immediately tell.
How many folks do you have under roof as FTEs and people, the resources that you have throughout the world?
So we have about 7,000 FTEs, and we actually have several million people that we work with specifically on a contract basis that we may deploy on projects. And again, most of them in finance and accounting, sort of office of the CFO, as well as a variety of areas of technology.
Okay. That's great to know. Hopefully people learn that because, you don't do a lot of advertising. So one of the questions that I'd like to drill in a little bit more and then ask an opinion. Do you have a CISO in your company today?
We do.
Okay. Is he invited to the board meetings?
So he is invited to the board meetings when we are talking about cybersecurity topics. So yes and no.
Okay. So the initiative, he has initiatives, obviously.
Yep.
Are you privy to those initiatives, and what is he doing to improve the cyber posture?
Yeah, we get a quarterly briefing at a minimum at things that we are working on. Sometimes related to various systems. Sometimes we recently have gone through an initiative with devices to make sure that we have proper security there. So we'll get kind of a quarterly regular update. Also, in a variety of executive meetings that we have, we will have the CISO come in and present on particular issues. We try to make it if we feel like there's a risk, we try to communicate that pretty quickly. And I also do think that one of the things that is underestimated in cybersecurity sometimes is the ability to communicate. I think it's important to tell people what the risks are, what they're seeing out there. And obviously, right now, AI is one of the bigger risks because, there's a lot of people, for those viewers who may not use AI every day. If you take private data and put it into a public model like ChatGPT, you may be exposing yourself to risk that you have absolutely no idea that you are doing, and to the extent where you want to make sure that you can advise employees, if you are doing this, it's okay to use a public model, but if you are doing this and it involves any kind of private data, you want to make sure that you are using, an internal private model. So
that's spot on. I mean, obviously people think that they're just using ChatGPT and it's on their computer. That data is out in the world. So there are ways
you
to
are
get
training the model every second of the day. Yes,
everyone is.
With more information. So
one of the things, I'm glad you have a CISO. A lot of companies don't. I'm glad he's invited to the board meetings because we encourage that. Out of your clients, without an estimation, have you seen attacks happening to clients of yours more in the recent years, or are you even privy to that when it happens?
So yes, there are attacks, but I also think that we have gone through a phase, and let's call it over the last, certainly over the last decade, where companies take cybersecurity much more seriously than they did in the past. And I think that from a cost standpoint, cybersecurity, it can be very expensive and can be very complicated. But I think it's gotten to the point where there have been, and maybe not as many very recently that I can think of, but you mentioned the Marriott Starwood incident. I think that as those larger incidents occur, CEOs and board members and others of larger public companies see that there can be very bad consequences to those, and I think that they have tightened up on cybersecurity in a way that maybe was not happening before, because it can be very public, it can be very bad, it can concern your customers. So we are seeing more, but we're also seeing companies willing to invest more and take a more aggressive posture on cybersecurity. We see clients sometimes run drills, for example. If this were to happen, this is the meeting sequence, kind of the war game. This is the way it occurs. So yeah, I mean, we're seeing a much higher level of caution related to cybersecurity.
So we are seeing an uptick as well. People are becoming aware, but sometimes personally, I believe that people are becoming numb to it. I mean, the DoD, CIA, and FBI came out 2.5 months ago and said, there's people in our infrastructure right now from foreign governments. How do we get rid of that? So it's a matter of when, not if. The question is, how do you think we educate people? You're educated, you're proactive. How do you think we educate the folks that aren't taking that next step?
Well, I think sometimes the best way to communicate to people that maybe are not subject matter experts about something is to give them a good analogy. And, so I view cybersecurity basically as insurance. You're paying a lot of money for something that you hope you never need, quite frankly. And I think that's really important. And just as if you would not have your house, not insured, you probably want to make sure that your data is insured. And I think the first step is to understand what are the risks. So if this were to happen, what would be the consequences? What would be the consequences, legally and financially, and also just what would be the consequences in terms of business continuation? If there is an attack, do you have a business continuation plan? How would that work? And if you don't, how do you get to that point? So I just think it's important to put things in simple terms. People tend to understand, a lot better if you can explain things in a simple way, or, using an analogy or whatever the case may be. But effectively, cybersecurity is insurance that you hope that you never need to use.
I wish a lot more people thought about it like that. For example, I use the analogy, there was a pandemic. People got sick. Could you tell me?
I heard about that.
Yeah. Somebody tell me they've actually saw the virus. No one's really seen the virus, but it was there. Hence, cybersecurity, the viruses, malware, you can't see it. So in previous years, we found, being in this industry a long time, that CFOs, usually the guys at the end with their attorney, it's a black hole. I can't see what it does. So you're telling me, hopefully, which we're seeing as well, that people are starting to recognize it. It's like an insurance. Because you don't see insurance, you only use it when something catastrophic happens.
Exactly. Another recommendation that I would make too is that the CISO should be very tightly connected to the CFO. And, in many cases now, you will find that, a lot of technology functions actually, and particularly infrastructure, actually reports into the CFO. And I think it's an important aspect of what CFOs do now that maybe was less important at some point in the past, to understand and protect against those risks. And also because every CFO is attempting to make sure that money is spent on the most appropriate things, and that it is not spent on things that are not going to have a return investment. It's an important. It is something that requires investment, and again, it's unfortunate because you don't get something out of it. Also, to sort of go with the point that you made, that you see, it doesn't necessarily make you better. It prevents bad things from happening.
Agreed. So I'm going to, finish up with one other question, and I'd really like your opinion. AI, right? We've talked about cyber. It's getting worse. People are starting to defend. But AI, where do you see it in the next 2 to 3 years in your business, or how we as an individual humans interact with it? How do you think it's going to affect society?
Well, I think it's going to be, number one, I'd say it's going to be substantial. And I would say that it is clear that things have never moved this fast in the past And frankly, as you go into the future, will never move as slow as they're moving now, if I just made any sense. So as these models become better, they're going to be able to do more sophisticated tasks. I think in our business, there's going to be more models that are directly interacting with clients and with consultants and with candidates, and that where that tends to be more of an interaction point, and then we are using that data from those individual interactions. So I think that will definitely change things, and there's a whole variety of things that I think can change, and the theme that I would bring you to, and we haven't really talked about, is AI agents. And I think that we've reached a point where you need to look at AI agents as basically digital labor. And as you look at digital labor and figure out, so what kind of tasks can this digital labor do? And then how does that change the job description of the people that are there? And what do you now need people to do? I think that's the greatest area of change. The other thing is that digital agents, similar to humans, need oversight and validation and management. So I think we're also reaching an area where in our business and in many businesses, that there'll be a whole aspect of how do you oversee that the models are doing something right? Because the other issue is that if you've used AI on any regular basis, you also know, guess what? That it's not, just like a human, it's not always right. So it requires oversight. Some of the stuff that we've talked about that relate to regulation or any legal aspect, there needs to be validation of everything that you're doing. You cannot take a model's word for it. And we certainly make sure that in our business that anything that we do with AI, that we're actually validating it before it goes out the door or before we apply it to an important client. So I think that the biggest change is going to be, what do agents do and what do humans do? And then how do they interact together and how do they get supervised?
I think that's a great point. Obviously, we used AI. We also, a little secret, we actually wrote the last contract with AI input, but we had to make sure it was correct. Yeah. It found 3 major issues with the contract itself. Otherwise, if you would have missed those with humans looking at it, that would have went through because it was so well done. So I agree with you 100%. It has to have oversight.
Yeah, you cannot. That's one of the biggest mistakes I think that you can make with AI right now, is that do not assume that it's somehow perfect. Do not assume that, we talked about our business in the talent solutions business and matching of candidates. You know what? It's still, before you present a candidate to someone, I believe that the client should expect that we still have inspected that candidate, that we've met them, that we understand their background. The idea is just to get the group of people that we consider to us faster and more efficiently, so we can then vet a smaller group more carefully and get the client what they're looking for. But we have an obligation to make sure that whatever we're giving to a client, that we've validated it and that we've inspected the quality of whatever we're doing.
Excellent. So we've covered a lot of ground today. And I appreciate your time. Is there something that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share?
I don't think so. I mean, I do think that we've covered a lot of ground. I'm glad that we've talked about some of the issues. I mean, at Highspring, we are very focused on what does the future look like and what do the next the way that we tend to look at things is, what do the next 3 years look like? What are the areas that we need to improve in over that period of time? So when we get to 3 years, we will be ahead of our competitors and ahead of the industry. And we're regularly attempting to identify what those are. And, we feel like that has played out really well in terms of some of the things that we're doing right now. And, we're in a position where we're doing pretty well right now, and we think that that's played a role in doing it. And certainly AI and protecting our data are 2 really important aspects of that.
Excellent. I wish you were on our roundtable, CEO roundtable, or C-level roundtable a couple of weeks ago, because somebody said, if you're not looking or using AI today and looking at the future, you're already lost against your competitors.
Yep.
Steve Kass, thank you so much for being here. Obviously, great conversation. Thank you. How can we learn more about your organization?
Thanks for having me, Dave, first of all. And yeah, if you want to learn more about Highspring, feel free to go to highspring.com. You can also learn about our talent solutions business specifically at vaco.com, V-A-C-O. And yeah, or you can find us on social media, on LinkedIn or anywhere else at Highspring.
Thank you, everybody, for watching today. Hopefully you've learned a little bit, not only about the organization, but would like to thank our host, NextSpace, for having us at a beautiful location, as well as if you'd like to find more out about CISO Global, our cybersecurity company, you're welcome to go to CISO.inc, and our ticker symbol on NASDAQ is CISO. So again, thank you for everybody watching, and this has been Black Hat Radio News.